I'm Jamie Manson. I'm the pretty new president of Catholics for Choice. I've been here since October, and it's a thrill to have so many people from around the world here with us. I'm in Washington, D.C., where it is morning, and I'm sure it's all kinds of times for all of you. So I thank you for whatever time of the day it is where you are for joining us. This program is very significant today. We expect here in the U.S. at 1 p.m. For our new president, Joe Biden, to rescind the global gag rule. We're happy about that. We wish he had done it on his first day in the office, but better late than never. We have some concerns about his announcement today, to be quite honest with you. We expect that the announcement will not mention funding the UNFPA. It will not mention a commitment to rescinding the Helms Amendment, and it will not talk about dismantling the very nefarious Geneva Consensus, which was signed in October 2020 by 34 countries, spearheaded by the Trump administration, and having very, very bad implications for abortion access worldwide. So there are many countries, though, around the world that are announcing feminist foreign policies. And so we're hoping that today is just a start, and that the Biden administration will start some new progressive sort of feminist foreign policy, because the time has come, it's probably past time, for the US to adopt this kind of model. Of course, the US brings a complicated legacy to global engagement. We have been a colony and a colonizer. We have very deep, deep history of racism and gender injustice. And so it makes it all the more important for us to change and pursue a feminist approach as this new administration re-engages with the world. What is a feminist foreign policy? Well, it's a progressive, inclusive, rights-based agenda. It values the voices of people who face the greatest barriers to exercising their human rights. Those barriers include racism, ableism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, any aspects that come from a patriarchal or male-dominated system of power. A feminist foreign policy works to change these systems of oppression. It centers the experience, expertise, and well-being of women and girls and people of marginalized genders, and all people who face systemic barriers to social and institutional discrimination. So today we have a very distinguished panel of 3 activists from different corners of the globe who are pursuing a more just society for their country and facing enormous obstacles doing that. They're fighting for societies where women are seen and recognized and valued. They are pushing against some deeply entrenched systems of patriarchy and hierarchy, many of which were built by the Catholic Church. They have been emboldened, these systems have been emboldened by 4 years of an expanded, very vastly expanded global gag rule under the Trump administration. And this has been profoundly harmful to women, the poor, and those who are most marginalized in society. But today we're here to talk about how these systems can change and the movements that are changing them, and how US foreign policy under the Biden administration can support reproductive justice for everyone, everywhere. So I'd like to begin by introducing our first panelist, Lola Guerra. Lola is a feminist lawyer. She's part of the campaign for safe, legal, and free, yes, free abortion in Argentina. She's also the co-director of Católicos por el Derecho a Decidir in Mexico. So Lola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. I am going to speak in Spanish, which is my own language, and I prefer to speak in Spanish. So thank you for having
Thank you to the translator for interpreting me. And I am from Argentina, Latin America. And what I wanted to tell you is to share with you my personal experience. When I was 20 years old, I got pregnant. My contraceptive failed. And at that time, abortion in Argentina was totally penalized. if you wanted to have a volunteer election to proceed with an abortion, you couldn't do it. And I didn't know what to do. I was desperate. I didn't know how to handle what I had there. I, under any circumstance, wanted to carry on with the abortion. I did not want to be a mother at that time of my life, and I started to do a lot of research. I got the phone number of a group of sisters, of women, and they actually gave you advice on how to use the day after pill, okay? And at that time, I knew that abortion was illegal. I was afraid of going to jail, and I was afraid of dying. And what I think now, when I look back, is that despite that, I went on with it. I prefer to go to jail. I even prefer to be dead and take the risk than being a mother. And that is something that a lot of us women go through. Over 500,000 women a year. And we do it under clandestine methods. I had to go to different physicians. I was a victim of institutional violence. I was, I was erasing my emails, my mails, my SMS at the time, because I was afraid of being prosecuted. But at that time, I said, no other women, no other sister can go through what I went through. And that's when I said, I have to now go into the national movement openly, because we need to have safe, free, and secure abortion. And we had been calling out for the legalization in, up to 14 weeks. And did we go through a big fight, federal level, participating in all provinces, different age groups, different sectors of thought, trade unions, student unions, women, indigenous associations, indigenous women associations, and that has started to create the debate in our country. And then in 2018, for the first time in the history of Argentina, we actually start talking seriously about how to legalize abortion. We unfortunately lost in Congress, but then at the end of last year, just a month and a half ago, we were able to legalize abortion. And it is quite a very robust, strong law, because it allows us as women no longer to risk our lives and no longer to think of being imprisoned.
¿Sigo?
Should I go on?
Please continue, Lola.
Okay, sí.
And from the legalization, from the approval of the law in Argentina, we saw that this was the inertia. We saw reactions throughout Latin America. In Chile, just a very few weeks ago, we started to discuss seriously before Congress up to 14 weeks of gestation prior to what happened in Argentina, and serving as a springboard in Chile. Now they're saying women should have the free will. So the fact that we approved it in Argentina served, like I said, as a springboard. In Mexico, the president said that that should go to public referendum, because abortion is legal in Oaxaca region and in the Distrito Federal in Mexico City, but not in the other countries. So the feminist movement said human rights are not under given jurisdictions or under one city yes, one city no. And El Salvador, which is a country that does not accept abortion under any circumstances, it was a trending topic a few weeks ago. Hashtag será ley, it will be law, regarding abortion. That was the hashtag, será ley. And obviously there was a reaction of the hardcore fundamentalists from the Catholic Church. We saw that in Honduras, And they actually reformed the constitution from one day to the next so they could not legalize it. So in Honduras, it had been allowed for certain reasons, but just like El Salvador, Haiti, and DR, Dominican Republic, they have the most restrictive rules, especially in Central America. And we are very worried, and we see how the fundamentalists that are against abortion are now getting together. So on one hand, we have the springboard causing inertia, and on the other hand, they are going hardcore like never before. And when we see in United States, your change of administration is going to have an effect on us. Like we say, when you sneeze, we could get a cold because whatever happens in the US is going to have a massive effect, especially in Central America and the Caribbean, given the fact that Trump was in power. He passed on the gag rule. That caused a massive lack of funding because we couldn't access funds, and they were sending a very highlighted, very harsh message to the country saying, oh, we should not respect SRHR, sexual reproductive health rights, because that's what they were aiming for. They were lobbying for that. They didn't want sexual and reproductive rights to be included in the basic health rights in many countries, and they were lobbying for that. We look forward and we welcome the change in the US because we believe that it's going to open a door, but we also know, like you said, that despite there's a change in the administration, there are going to be some glitches at the beginning. So we still need to pay attention. We must have a way, we can look from a faith point of view and do it because of our values, because of our faith, and not in spite of faith or values. And we need to create that level. He is a Catholic and he is the president. As a Catholic president, he has to be outspoken and he has to be loud and clear to say how paramount it is to understand that you cannot impose your beliefs, your faith, or your decision-making processes on anyone. You need to respect the free will. You need to respect the state, but at the same time, guarantee the rules, the human rights, and also obviously the sexual health and reproductive rights. We look forward. We're quite hopeful of what is happening, and all of us sisters here, we hope to be working hand in hand with the North American sisters and brothers. So that's what I had to say. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you, Lola. Really powerful words, and you have such a prophetic voice, and we're also grateful for your work and for your partnership with us. I'm going to turn to Reverend Canon Martin Kalimbe. He is an Anglican priest serving in Malawi. Malawi, he would like you to know, is a small country of 18 million people in Southern Africa. Apart from being a priest in the Church of God, he is an activist on gender and sexual reproductive health issues. For the past 6 years, Reverend Kalimbe has been actively involved in advocating for the reform of the abortion law in Malawi. He's married to Temwa, and they have 2 children. Thank you so much, Reverend Kalimbe, for being here. And you are on mute. And while
yes, can you hear me?
We can. And before you start, I just want to remind everyone, you have to select a preferred language by clicking the globe at the bottom. We only have English and Spanish today. We apologize. And if you are on a mobile phone, you hit the 3 dots and you'll be able to choose your language. My apologies, Reverend Kalimbe. Please, we welcome you.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for welcoming me, but also inviting me to be part of this meeting this afternoon. First of all, let me apologize that we have problems with the internet. As you know, being in a third world countries, yeah, those are some of the challenges that we face each and every day. But I think today things will be okay. We'll be able to communicate to all the our listeners and all those who are participating in this in this meeting. Um, I've been asked to talk about the impact of the global gag rule in Malawi. As you know, that Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world, and with this rule, Malawi was also affected. Malawi has a fragile health system, and by not receiving funds from USA to support its health system, especially on the issues to do with sexual and reproductive health rights, that paralyzed all the activities that some of the organizations that are involved in providing services to the public. And for the past 3 years or so, it has been very tough because Malawi could not access funding from USA. And that has really affected the activities of some of the organizations. We have some organizations that are very active in providing healthy health services to the masses. Like we have what is called Banjala Tsogolo, which gets funding from Mari Stops International. And we have also Family Planning Association in Malawi, also gets funding from USA. But with the previous USA administration, it was very difficult for these two organizations to get funding because of the gag rule. And we also just found ourselves in a situation whereby some of us, we are advocating for the reform of the abortion law, because in Malawi, the abortion law, which is found in the penal code, was enacted in 1929 and was brought into force on 1st April 1930. So you can imagine we're talking of about 90 years. This law has been there and is very restrictive, and women and girls have been dying just because they can't access safe abortion. Now, we have been fighting, we have been advocating for the change of this law, but we just find ourselves in this context whereby there's a global gag rule whereby we cannot access funding from USA, and that really paralyzed our activities. The government of Malawi in 2013 paneled a special law commission to review the current law, abortion law that we have, so that changes should be made after making some studies and see how the unsafe abortion have impacted the women and girls. And in 2016, a special law commission report was released. And in that special law commission report, there were proposals that were made that the current law should be revisited, should be reviewed so that it should suit the current situation in Malawi. Because what we have now in the provisions of the penal code, which deals with abortion, are based on the 1861 Offences Against the Person Act of England. And since then, the law on abortion in England has undergone numerous reforms reflecting changing views of the general population there in England. But here in Malawi, the law has remained unchanged for over 90 years now. So the proposals were made and some of the, because in the current law, what is being said is that a woman can access abortion, safe abortion, if her life or if her health condition is at risk. And that abortion can be only procured by a qualified doctor and should be done through surgery. That is what the current law is saying. But with the proposals that were made by this law commission and what is contained in the current bill is that a woman or a girl can procure safe abortion if the continued pregnancy will endanger the life of a pregnant woman. That is the first ground. And the second ground is that the termination of pregnancy is necessary to prevent injury to the physical or mental health of a pregnant woman. And the third ground is that if there is a severe malformation of the fetus, which will affect its viability or compatibility with life, safe abortion can be procured. And the last one is that if the pregnancy is a result of rape, incest, or defilement. So what the framers did is just to expand some of the current the bill or the current law, whereby just says when a woman's life is at risk. So they came up with these 4 grounds to expound what it means, what a woman's life is at risk. Well, there was a fear. There were some who were saying, now, why can't we just liberalize the law? But the framers received resistance from other religious groups that were not comfortable with the reform of the current bill on abortion. So last year there was an arrangement that the bill should be tabled in the parliament, but there were some religious groupings that petitioned the parliament that the bill should not be tabled or discussed in the parliament. And the one who was supposed to present it withdrew after receiving threats, death threats, and other things from other circles, especially the religious groupings and other sectors. Now, what is so exciting is that because in the next coming week also, Parliament will meet again, and the one who's supposed to be table the bill has already been given a green light that this time around the bill will be tabled, will be presented in the parliament, and we are hopeful that once the bill is presented in the parliament, it will receive positive to attract positive results. That is our prayer. But what is very one of our fears is that our current president is the former pastor of an evangelical church in Malawi, and somebody who is influenced with the evangelical values. And we don't know whether once the bill, after being tabled and discussed in the parliament, you'll be able to assent it, because we're afraid that maybe he'll be influenced by our brothers and sisters in the evangelical groupings, that maybe you will discourage him or you will stop him not to assent this bill. That is one of our fears, because already we have some religious groupings in Malawi who are agitating, who are against this bill to be presented in the parliament. They already presented their petitions in the parliament that this bill should not be discussed. And we have information that there are some religious groupings in USA who are pumping a lot of money to these religious groupings, making sure that this bill should not be tabled in the parliament. That is our main fear. And already organizations that are involved in advocating for the review, for the reform of this bill, are financially paralyzed. As I've already said, that for the past 3 years or so, it has been very tough to get funding from USA. Now, it hasn't been easy for us to move forward. But that is our challenge at the meantime.
Thank you so much, Martin. We really appreciate, I know I personally appreciate a courageous voice that comes from the church, and we so admire the work you do. We were very struck, Amanda and I were just chatting about your words, and the colonial law that you're fighting against is from the UK, and it's still on the books in so many countries. And it's one of the sad legacies of colonialism that a feminist foreign policy could help resolve. It's still the law in countries like Malta, for example, which has some of the most draconian abortion laws in the world. So we thank you again. I'm going to turn to Kamila Ferenc. Kamila, we know this is a very sad day in Poland. The new restrictive law went into effect today. That law that near total ban on abortion will imminently be, and today actually is going into effect. And after 3 months of really courageous protests and very personally moving protests for us in the US, this still will go into effect. So we're very, very glad you're here, and we're sorry it's such a sad day. Kamila is a graduate of the law faculty at the University of Warsaw and an attorney trainee at the Warsaw Bar Association. She's now a lawyer at the Federation for Women and Family Planning, where she provides legal assistance, conducts national and international work concerning access to abortion and other reproductive health services, and she coordinates strategic litigation. And she very often collaborates with NGOs as a pro bono lawyer. And we're so grateful you're here, Kamila. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, inviting me. Yes, this is a very sad day because yesterday after 11 p.m., the ruling of the Constitutional Court was published, which means that it came into force. And it means that abortion on the ground when severe fetal defects were detected, were diagnosed, is right now banned in Poland. Of course, it doesn't mean that women cannot have such abortions, but they are not protected or supported by the state. Otherwise, just the opposite. Doctors who would perform such abortion and people who would help in performing such abortion would be penalized according to yesterday rulings publication. Of course, we have a lot of formal legal reservations towards this ruling because it was sentenced by the Constitutional Court, which is right now not considered as independent judiciary body. It's rather a political body and is very dependent on the ruling party. But still, in practice, it has many consequences for women in Poland because doctors right now in Poland are too afraid to just perform abortions in case of fetus impairment. It is too dangerous for them, for their career to just take risk and perform such abortions. Of course, we very much rely on physicians and they mission, their obligation, their ethics, their obligation to just protect patients' rights and to save their lives. And we really believe that many doctors would assess the situation when a pregnant woman knows about severe irreversible fetus defect can also be another abortion ground, which is still legal in Poland, which is the danger for pregnant women's health or life, mental health included. So the access to abortion is very limited right now, but before the ruling, we also had very restrictive framework on abortion in Poland. The practice of enforcement of this restrictive law, which had only 3 exceptions of the situations when abortion was not penalized and was accessible only in theory, but in practice, it wasn't accessible. Pregnant women who wanted to interrupt the pregnancy faced a lot of barriers and a lot of humiliation in public hospitals when they tried to reach out doctors and ask for medical care. Right now, after the ruling, we need to act in a different way. We need to protect women and provide them with information about the possibilities to have abortion, to still have abortion, but in other way than in public hospital. We right now are creating groups of doctors who will be ready to assess women's health and mental health and issue opinions that those women need abortion, and depriving them of access to abortion will be torture. We also are going to make complaints to European Court of Human Rights and UN Human Rights Committee, especially having in mind the two groundbreaking decisions of the Human Rights Committee, which were Mellet against Ireland and Whelan versus Ireland, which clarified that depriving women of access to abortion in their country in the situation when the severe fetus defects were diagnosed is a violation of the prohibition of discrimination, gender-based discrimination, or the prohibition of cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment. So we are going to make complaints. We are going to start legal proceedings here in our national courts. But first of all, we need to provide women with medical care, with social, psychological help. We need to inform them about the possibilities and about the reality and the consequences of the ruling. Many of them are still not aware. We are also waiting for the hospitals to start to react to the ruling. Right now, still patients are waiting if the hospital would assess their situation as a situation of strong danger for their health and right and would perform abortion on this ground, or maybe those women would be sent away from hospitals. So we are waiting for the dynamic situation and the development of this dynamic situation. We know that the only solution that would save women right now is very clear and it's obvious, but it's very difficult to achieve on the other hand, and this is the liberalization and the penalization of abortion. Such draft bill is prepared right now, and the committee of citizens initiative, legislative initiative, is formed, and we are going to collect signatures, but the pandemic of coronavirus is a tough obstacle, and we also cannot count on the parliamentary majority, because still the ruling party, which is very conservative, has the majority in the parliament. So we know that our draft bill on liberalization and decriminalization of abortion will be rather an educational and awareness-raising action rather than strong political move. But we need to do something. And of course, the Catholic Church in Poland has a very strong position, and this position is strongly against abortion. The Church would like to have a total ban on abortion. The only good aspect of that is that they don't want to punish women who had abortions, which sometimes such ideas are raised up by other anti-choice organizations, but the Catholic Church is still on the position that women should not be penalized. But you can ask where the strong position of the Catholic Church come from, and I can tell you that Church was always important in Poland, but especially during this communist regime times in Poland, it played very important role of the opposition, of the protector of the place where people could hide. But this is very strange that Church, to some extent, had some quite big, I must say, autonomy during communist time, although the other people from the opposition were strictly punished and chased. But the church still could develop and could have churches open and could have masses and gather people. And we have the theory that church somehow legitimized the new communist regime and authorities. Of course, the declaration was against, but on the other hand, somehow the communication was seen between the establishment and the church. But after the economical and political transformation, the Catholic Church, from the role of protector and of the savior and of the opposition, went to the position of a political actor, very strong one. The church was given huge donations, huge public money, and huge property. Of course, as a gift, as a thankful gift for the times of the communist regime and the times when the church helped the opposition. But this thankful gift became the sources, the tools of a huge political power. And right now, the Catholic Church is not only the religious institution, it is one of the political actors on the political scene. And almost all the politicians, maybe besides the left-wing parties, but even those parties, this kind of parties, in the past used to take care of the church's opinion and tries to make deals with the church. But right now, the left-wing parties trying to distance from the church, but all the other parties are totally respectful for the Catholic Church and really watch out what the church does, says, and wants from them. And all their political choices are always limited by the vision what the church would say about this. Because the truth is that the church has huge resources and huge channels of communication. Every Sunday, the church and the priests can announce that abortion is wrong, so you should sign this draft bill, or you should donate to this organization, anti-choice organization, or you should vote for this or that politician. The influence of the church is huge, and the system of organization, but also of blackmailing people, is also very terrifying. For example, you cannot have your child's religious celebration if you don't sign under the draft bill on total abortion ban. These situations happen in Poland from time to time, and this is how the Catholic Church acts. But on the other hand, right now we have a huge tendency of people turning away from the church, and a huge exodus from the church. There are a lot of publications and films about the church's crimes or trying to cover the crimes. So people are right now starting to realize that, especially the hierarchy of the church, it's not so like it seems to be. And many people are just going away from the church, but still it has quite strong political influence on our public life. So the future is unknown. The situation is very dynamic. We hope for the future that the church would become only the religious institution and would be involved only in its main role and mission, and would work on the communication with young people and would really take care of, for example, economical situation of many people, rather than depriving women of their rights. Because we need to remember that Poland is a country where church should be separate from the state, but these rules are not followed or enforced right now. So yes, we are going to gain our right to abortion back. We are going to liberalize the abortion law, but we still need to have more resources than the church has to just support women who need right now a lot of help. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Kamila, thank you so much. I just found this so fascinating, the way in which you charted the church's relationship with government through communism, and how it always manages to be the savior, regardless when communism was in effect, when it falls down. And certainly we know the near idolatry of John Paul II among many Polish people, and the power that has, and the power that has had over the government. So I thank you very much. It's extraordinary the dynamics we see too about the weaponization of sacraments and things like that around the issue of abortion specifically. In some ways, we're fighting similar battles. So we thank you so much. I know it's again a sad day, but your presentation and your brilliance just gives me so much hope, and I'm sure hope to many other people. So thank you. So I thank all of our speakers so much. I think that all of their presentations show very clearly why we need a feminist foreign policy. Again, to recap where we are in the US, at 1 o'clock today, President Biden will rescind the global gag rule, but again, we are not expecting him to say much about anything about funding the UNFPA, about dismantling the Geneva Consensus Declaration, or about getting rid of the Helms Amendment. So there is work to be done ahead. We're going to stay hopeful, but we can't, as Lola said, we cannot, we have to stay vigilant. So what can Biden do to take those steps toward a progressive feminist foreign policy? He can say clearly he's committed to a comprehensive sexual and reproductive health care program, including abortion, and he has to say the word abortion. His Roe versus Wade statement did not, so you have to be able to say the word. He has repealed the gag rule, which is very important, but what we need him to do is now support the Global Her Act. And what that will do is reverse and permanently get rid of the global gag rule. We need him to send a clean budget to Congress, free from the Helms Amendment, which bans the use of federal funds for abortion as a family planning method. And we need him to commit to refunding the UN Population Fund, the UNFPA, which is the UN Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. And he needs to ensure that funding for sexual and reproductive health programs and comprehensive sexuality education is in foreign assistance budgets. Why should he do this? Well, I think our panelists make that very, very clear. The torture that women go through, the forced birthing, the lack of the control over their bodies and their freedom. This feminist foreign policy would put the US in line with efforts of a growing number of countries who have embraced this approach, including many of our neighbors. It would support freedom of conscience and human rights around the world. And honestly, as a Catholic, we expect President Biden to honor certain ideas in the Catholic tradition. One of them is the primacy of individual conscience as the final arbiter in all moral decision-making. And the other is the Catholic commitment to the preferential option for the poor. And what that means is that our priority, our preference must be with the most marginalized, the most disadvantaged, the powerless, and the sick, that they should be our first priority. And there is more than ample evidence that abortion, restrictions on abortion, on sexuality, education, on all forms of contraception, all forms of reproductive health care make the poor poorer, and make the sick sicker, and make people who are in profoundly powerless circumstances even more powerless. And so as a Catholic, we ask him to honor those social justice values. We thank our presenters again for their courage and for their prophetic voices. We may have just a few minutes for questions. So I am going to turn this back over to Amanda, our program. If she is there. There she is.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you again to our presenters. We have a question from one of our attendees, and perhaps one of our panelists would like to speak to it, that they had never heard of abortion referred to as a political platform of the church before. And how do the panelists feel about, or how do they come to the conclusion that the church has a political platform? Do you see this in the way the church works in each of your countries? And where is the line between the church being a moral agent in society as a religious institution and a political actor?
Should I start to respond to that question?
Please, Reverend Kalimbe.
Yes. Let me just give you a historical background of Malawi. Malawi was initially it was under British protectorate, and before it became British protectorate, we have a history whereby one of the Scottish missionaries by the name of Dr. David Livingstone came to visit Malawi, and when he went back to Scotland, he mobilized people there to come to Malawi and invest. So, being a church person, he also talked to other religious groupings there in Scotland to come and evangelize Malawi. And the first religious grouping that came to Malawi, it was called Investors Mission to Central Africa. So though the country was colonized by the British, but you'd find that the religious leaders by then had a hand in the day-to-day of the running of the government. So there was a very thin line between the church and the state. So since that time, it has been like that. You find that the church has got a big say in the life of the government. And here in Malawi, you'll find that the Catholic Church is the largest church. The Catholic Church is the largest church, and you find that when we are moving from one-party system to multipartyism, the church, the Roman Catholic Church played a big role because they are the ones that wrote what they call a pastoral letter, criticizing the previous government, where the one-party system of government, that there was need to change, there's need to embrace multi-party democracy. So since that time in 1992, when this letter was published, the Catholic Church has been on the front. Influencing even decisions that the government makes. You find that even the parliament, there is a group of Catholic members of parliament. Whenever they meet, they discuss, they even consult with their bishops what to say when it comes to issues to do with the citizens. So even this issue of the abortion, already this group mobilized itself that once the issue is brought in the parliament, they'll shut it down. And one of the reasons, they'll say the Roman Catholic Church doesn't allow abortion. So you find that in Malawi, we claim that we are a God-fearing nation, and you find that a lot of people even think that the constitution that we have is something that is derived from the Bible or the Quran. There are a few people that know that Malawi is a secular country. There are very few people. So that is our main challenge, that it's like religion plays a big role. Religion influences a lot of decisions that the government makes. And as I've already said in my presentation, that even the current president is a former pastor. Is a former pastor of an evangelical church. So you can imagine, you can appreciate the situation that we found ourselves, that you can't take out the church from the political sphere.
Thank you, Reverend Kalimbe. I think Lola wanted to comment on this question as well.
Sí, sobre esta pregunta lo que yo quería compartir es que
regarding this question, what I wanted to share is that we Catholic women carry on abortions. I mean, we perform, and to a point, we always see that the Catholic Church denies us of that right, and we are Catholic above all, and we read the Bible. And if you read feminist theology, you will see that Virgin Mary was asked about being the mother. Gabriel asked her, "Do you want to be the mother? Yes or no?" I waited for the answer. So that is the set of rules, for those of you that don't know, the set of judiciary of legal laws, legal framework of the Catholic Church. And it clearly establishes that under many circumstances, it is allowed, it is understood that it is the woman that actually carries on that decision. So, because obviously if you go into canon law, then you're going to see that excommunion will be the penalty for abortion, but that goes beyond many of the countries of our region. If you were afraid, if you were sexually abused, if you became pregnant under the influence of substances, etc., it is there. 1398 canon, that's where it is. And if you look at the Second Vatican Council, you will see that sexuality is not only for reproduction or for procreating. So we need to start thinking differently. We are fighting in order to show, and not only in Catholic Church, but in other churches, in other faiths and creeds, there are religious fundamentalists that want to impose a unique moral vision so that we have to live our lives, and especially our sexuality, under that strict, unique point of view. What we say as sisters, as Catholic, as evangelists, as whatever, but as women, is that we need to have the spirit. We cannot impose the spirit of faith. And obviously you cannot impose it above our rights. So to us, we don't see this as a political movement per se. This is also a fight that we need to have in order to make different voices heard in the church system. And that's what we're fighting for. We fight for a church that clearly defends the free will of women, the human rights of women, men, children, of everyone, and following the road of Jesus. Jesus empowered the women. It is there. I don't know if we should go on it here, but if we look at the parables, you will see that we as women were invoked by Jesus to fight on his name. So that's our position. We are Catholic above all, and we defend the right to be happy, to defend our sexuality. And we have a commitment to respect the right of other people, but we also want our rights to be respected. We all want churches to have the role that we want them to have, and that by the divine mandate is for them to have, so that human rights are independent of faith and of creed.
Thank you so much, Lola. And I think that was really the perfect comment to close us out because we are at time. But I really loved what you said about having to keep the faith and to live out our faith, and that we know that President Biden is a faithful man, and we ask and call on him to really uphold that in his policymaking and as he re-enters the world as a global leader on behalf of the United States, in really being proactive and advancing reproductive freedoms for all of us in line with his faith. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, to our wonderful interpretation team, Jose Luis and Barbary, thank you for being here. Thank you, Jamie, for chairing our event. And you can always follow up with us on email, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you, everyone.